often about free will and how the brain constructs consciousness and awareness.
Who is the author of that book, real quick?
David Eagleman.
Incognito.
He's also a neuroscientist with a lab and does research, and so he's got a lot of really great insights, and he really explores the question thoroughly, and even talks about ethical problems with it.
Have you read Determined by Sapolsky?
No, there's so many books out there about this topic, but yeah, I definitely I'll put that on the burner. But what is it again? It's what is it?
Determined. It's really good. It's really good.
Ah.
Pretty long though. I'm almost done with this book too. The biology or an anatomy of violence, the biological roots of crime. This book is extremely, extremely good. Some really fucked up shit in there, but some also really interesting stuff, like this kid who was basically committing Grand Theft Auto his whole childhood, and then when he grew up to be a teenager, he basically like conquered his home from his parents and just wouldn't stop doing crime. And then they entered him in a study, and they found out that he had like chronic understimulation of some region in his frontal cortex. So they had him play Pac-Man, and he turned into a straight A student after that.
That's hilarious. But you know, at the same time, like I've experienced similar transformations that seem like profound and almost instantaneous, just from different, like from stepping outside of my comfort zone. And for example, I used to be a huge video gamer, and I just spent all my time playing video games. And then one summer I spent some time on my cousin's farm, and I went from being a D student to an A student after one summer. And my entire outlook on the world, and like all my interests changed, my passions changed. But anyway,
I haven't been avoiding your question. There's just cool stuff about this. But anyways, so I don't believe in free will. Sapolsky in Determined, he also very much is like, nope, I don't believe in free will. I think libertarian free will is a stupid idea. I think compatibilism is a stupid idea. And I don't 100% remember how he lays out his thesis, because do you know who Michael Gazzaniga is?
No.
Do you know what split brain patients are?
Yes, absolutely.
Michael Gazzaniga pioneered all the research for that, essentially. So Michael Gazzaniga knows this stuff very well, and he chooses to believe in a kind of sort of like libertarian free will, I think, and Sapolsky kind of rips him apart for it kind of early on in the book. Like the idea that when you choose or when you act in accordance with what your beliefs are, that's a kind of free will. It's like, I don't think so. No, because you couldn't have chosen otherwise, and you didn't choose what your preferences are either, So no, I don't believe in free will. The other thing you said about like how consciousness is formed.
Yeah.
What exactly was your question on that?
Well, it ties into the it's just part of the question of free will, because I mean, why are we conscious? What is consciousness? Is it a tool of evolution? Is it just something that the brain uses to be more certain of its predictions and to more matched to
I think that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I think just though culturally we don't talk about that enough. And I think it's a hard question to talk about, because I think a lot of people don't come equipped from like the same starting point of being able to comprehend like the reasons behind that question. And it's
I mean, there's also kind of a question of why should the ordinary person give a fuck? And they probably shouldn't, but a policymaker should care huge amounts about this kind of thing. What sort of annoys me, also, if you want to read a really cool book about the possible evolution of minds, Other Minds by Peter Godfrey Smith is a really good book about that. And Alex O'Connor just dropped an interview with him this morning. So definitely If you don't have time for the book, definitely watch the podcast. Although I haven't listened to it yet, but it's about his work on that, so I would check that out. But yeah, the whole like free will and like people don't think
Yeah,
too seriously about it. I do kind of think the ordinary person doesn't really need to, but again, a policymaker should. What really annoys me is when people say, take this defeatist rhetoric of we can't do or we shouldn't spend money on blank because people are just going to do blank anyways. And that's just, to me, I think that's the free will argument. Good people ask me like, oh, if you don't believe in free will, then why bother doing anything? It's like, well, actually, I think people, I don't want to say, what's the word? People just kind of don't do, like, people become apathetic and don't do things because they have this free will idea. If you think that a person is largely or almost entirely, I think a person is entirely a product of their genes and their environment, then yeah, getting rid of lead in the environment is going to, and we know this for a fact, reduce crime by huge amounts. Oh, geez, what the heck? I thought criminals just were a certain type of person or whatever. There's even very
yeah,
odd stuff like around suicides. It's one of Malcolm Gladwell's books. I can't remember which one, but he talks about how they wanted to or not build, but like erect a net under the Golden Gate Bridge because it's like the number one suicide destination in the country for whatever reason. And that would have to be paid for, obviously. And people in San Francisco were like, no, because why would we waste millions of dollars on that when there are any number of tall buildings that they could just go and jump off of? And that makes sense. But what they found out was they did put the netting in and suicides plummeted because for whatever reason, people couple the idea, like people romanticize how they want to end their lives. And if you take that away from them, they don't do it. And
interesting.
this is also, I think, I don't want to turn this into politics, but the gun debate is this kind of thing too. People say, well, if we just get rid of guns, then you won't change the number of deaths. People just make pipe bombs and there'll be mass stabbings. It's like, no. Some of the absolute most psychotic people might do that, a very small number, but the total number would actually dramatically plummet. And then
Yeah,
this can go with huge numbers of different things. So
right. And even so I've heard this is kind of going a little off topic, or not off topic, but kind of changing the direction. So like tumors, for example, can change people's behaviors
yeah,
instantly. Like a tumor can
I got a wild
even
story from this book when you're done about that.
oh yeah. But also like sleep in our sleep. Like there's been cases where people commit homicide in their sleep, like while they're sleepwalking.
Hmm.
This guy murdered like half his family while he was sleepwalking.
Yeah, what do you do with a
And
person like that? It's such a
yeah, well, they eventually, he was determined innocent, but there was, they had to really examine him like with a psychologist and from like a very scientific perspective that was brought in uh, to really argue like against the fact that he wasn't really responsible for what he did.
mhm.
Um, but also, I think it's interesting that I think it was a stroke that caused this one where somebody like this woman suddenly stopped being able to perceive motion, and she just saw snippets of frozen moments in time that just kind of were in a sequential order of things. Like if she were to walk across the street, she would see a red truck down the street, and then the next second she would see the truck in front of her.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
called
and
isn't that called a kinetopsia?
probably. I know it's a rare thing. I can't remember the name behind it. But the way our like perception is constructed, we're not in control of what we ultimately, even our thoughts, you know, our thoughts have been, our intentions, our desires, our urges to do things have already been calculated before we even know that we have that urge or that thought.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then that process goes back in a loop, and then it's just a continuous cycle of the brain recalculating the next, you know, thing, and the ability to do this within a certain amount of time is also dependent on a lot of, you know, the efficiency of your brain and the way your like the way your neural networks are developed, and so there's a lot of variety between like what people are even capable of thinking. Like, just because you can say, you know, think you have free choice or free will, you can't really choose your next thought the way you think. Like, you think you're thinking for yourself, you think everything you think has you know, you came up with,
Yeah.
but we actually haven't. We're just experiencing it.
Yeah, there's this I was reading it just yesterday in this book. This guy, I wish I would have bookmarked the page, but he must have married this woman who already had a daughter, because from what I remember, they keep saying it was a stepdaughter, but he kept sexually abusing his stepdaughter. And he was also just a complete like pig around women in general. And after eventually, like, I don't think his wife knew, but eventually she found out. And so I don't remember if he got arrested, but then, yeah. So what was it? I don't remember exactly what happened. He got either committed or arrested, and he threatened to end his life if they like did something to him. I don't remember. So he ended up getting a brain scan, because after he did that, and they found out he had a tumor in his brain. They removed the tumor, and 100% of his criminal and sexual deviances, proclivities, whatever, completely disappeared. And then, like, a few years later, he started relapsing, but they looked and the
Yeah,
tumor grew
it's
back.
because there was still a part of the tumor that was
Yeah.
growing back.
Yeah,
I
it
think I
grew back,
remember
and
that. Yeah.
they cut it out. This was back in 2002. It was a while ago. And the guy was saying, as of the writing of this book, he is completely, basically rehabilitated, but he didn't even need rehabilitation. He just had the tumor cut out. So now we're left in this just insane position of being like, okay, well, the dude was literally a child molester, but in a way, it wasn't him. So what do you do with a person like this? Prison sounds basically unfair, you know? And it's such a fascinating but also horrendous thing to have to try to navigate and figure out what the hell you do in certain instances like that.
As far as the like whether ordinary people really need to think about this, I think, you know, there maybe it's true that ordinary people, it's harder for ordinary people to think about it, but I think it would be beneficial if they could. I think it would trickle down like a lot towards, you know, how like the trajectory of society and culture. I think it would lead to a more positive and more curious and, you know, like more calculated existence, you know, because I think people would try to utilize that power of their brain, uh what like to do what it does best instead of just take it for granted.
So there's an aspect of this that makes me super uncomfortable, because when I read stuff like this and other science books and things like that, and I realize just how complicated things are and how much the average person just has no clue about those kinds of things. And there's all kinds of things that I'm completely clueless about as well, right?
Yeah.
But we live in a world where we wield all this power, and so we have to be able to make sure we're making the right decisions. And so then I start to think, can the average person be responsible enough to put policymakers in office who are going to make the right decisions about this? Which is such a creepy thought, because technically we are a republic, and it's like republics limit, they're not true democracies. They limit voting to certain people. And then it's like, do I think that all of a sudden you're going to have to like be able to pass a test to vote? Like, I'm so against that, because right wingers use that. It's such a weird thing, because right wingers have historically used that for racist motives or whatever. But here I am thinking, the right wingers gave us Donald Trump, so I want to IQ test them and make sure that we don't make that kind of mistake again. But it's like,
Right?
I don't think I could live with that. And so then it's like, so are we just going to destroy ourselves in the name of preserving democracy? Like, are we going to die for what we believe in? And it's just, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck you do about that. It's so just creepy.
Absolutely. I think about that all the time, and I think we're maybe not at a position where we're aware enough of the way that we can really guide that situation if it was necessary, like to guide it in the correct way, to use the right kind of narrative, the right tools. I think AI might actually take us to a point where AI will be assisted in like making bigger policy decisions and even running the government. But I think, if anything, that's probably going to be what happens before anything else. Is AI might have more of a say than any individual.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Maybe the solution is to stop making celebrities out of elected officials. Like, make it so now, if you serve in government, it's illegal for you to be on TV except C-SPAN. It's like, so they can stop fucking like lying to people and coercing people into what they believe in. They literally just construct realities for people. And it's just really pathetic. So yeah, I don't know.